Your husband knows, my mother whispered in my ear, exactly 12 minutes after the wedding ceremony ended. She had been crying, not tears of joy, not even bittersweet nostalgia. These were sharp, silent tears, the kind that fall from someone watching a slow-motion disaster they've already seen before. She didn't wait for me to ask what he knew. She just adjusted her shawl, gave me a kiss on the cheek, and walked away like she'd done her part. And I just stood there in my gown, still holding the bouquet, surrounded by the buzz of clinking glasses and plastic laughter. I scanned the crowd. My new husband, Daniel, was across the room, laughing with my uncle. His smile looked normal. Too normal. That's when I noticed the look. A flicker. Not in his eyes, in my uncle's. He glanced at me, then quickly away, like he'd just remembered something uncomfortable. Something he shouldn't be part of. I shook it off. Told myself I was just overwhelmed. The ceremony, the music, the endless emotional swirl, it could make anyone paranoid, right? Except it didn't stop. That night, Daniel held me like he always did. Gentle, warm, safe. But sometime around 3 a.m., I woke up to find him sitting at the edge of the bed, staring at the wall. Can't sleep, I whispered. He didn't answer. Just a small shake of the head. Then, finally, he said, "Do you think people always tell the truth at weddings?" I blinked. What? He turned back toward me, smiled faintly, and slid under the sheets. Nothing. Go back to sleep. I tried. I couldn't. The next morning, I found my mother in the kitchen of the little cottage we'd rented for the weekend. She was making tea, her hands moving like she'd done this 1,000 times. I sat across from her. Waited. She didn't look at me. Didn't say a word. "What does he know, Mom?" I finally asked. Still nothing. "You said it at the reception." Whispered it like it was some kind of code. "What does Daniel know?" She poured herself tea. Stirred it once. Then set the spoon down carefully. Then she looked me in the eye and said, "You really don't remember, do you?" That's when the panic started. Because there's nothing more terrifying than someone asking if you remember something you don't even know you've forgotten. "I don't. What are you talking about?" She sipped her tea. "I'm not the one who should tell you. He is." "Tell me what?" But she just smiled, that tight, motherly smile that means nothing and everything. Daniel appeared in the doorway, holding his phone. "Hey, everything okay?" My mother stood. "I'll leave you too." She walked past him, touched his arm gently, and exited like a ghost. Daniel watched her leave. Then looked at me. "What was that about?" he asked. I opened my mouth. Then closed it. I didn't know what to say. I didn't even know what was happening. That afternoon, we were supposed to go to a vineyard. I never made it. I spent the whole time in the bathroom, staring at my own reflection like it might blink first. By the time the trip ended, something between us had shifted. It was small at first, like a thread pulling loose on the edge of a sweater. You ignore it. You keep wearing it. You pretend it's nothing. Until it isn't. 7 days after the wedding, I packed a bag and left in the middle of the night. No note. No explanation. Just fear. Cold, creeping, quiet fear. Because I still didn't know what he knew. But I was starting to understand what it might cost to find out. I didn't go far at first. A friend from university had an Airbnb above her garage she rented out to visiting academics. I texted her at 3:07 a.m. and she replied 3 minutes later, no questions. Code is 1994. Stay as long as you need. I took only the essentials: phone, charger, toiletries, a week's worth of clothes. I left my wedding ring on the bedside table, next to Daniel's favorite watch. I turned off my phone for 2 full days. When I turned it back on, there were no missed calls, no voicemails, no texts from Daniel. But there was a message from a number I didn't recognize. "He's not who you think he is. Ask about the letters." No name, no follow-up. I tried to call. The number was disconnected. I sat in the kitchenette, surrounded by silence and faint smell of someone else's coffee grounds, and stared at the message until the screen dimmed. The letters. The words looped in my mind like static. I'd never received love letters from Daniel. That wasn't his style. He wrote emails, short and polite. He once left a sticky note on the fridge: Don't forget your 2 p.m. Zoom. Red Heart D. That was about as romantic as it got. But I had seen something once. A box. In his closet. Months ago, before the wedding. I thought it was an old tech box, maybe from a router or speaker. But he closed the closet door so quickly, I never got a good look. So I went back. Not smart. Not safe. But the silence was louder than anything else. I waited until I knew he'd be at work, used the spare key I hadn't yet returned, and slipped inside. The apartment was spotless. Too spotless. The bathroom mirror had been scrubbed down to nothing. The bed made military tight. Our wedding photo, the one from the ceremony, had been taken off the wall. I went straight to the closet. The box was gone. But behind the hangers, I saw something strange, a sliver of tape on the back wall. A seam. Barely visible. I pressed it. The panel clicked and shifted slightly. Inside was a compartment. Not deep, not wide. Just enough space for a thin stack of folded papers, cream-colored envelopes, thick, elegant handwriting. No postage. No dates. All addressed to her. Every one of them. I didn't open them. Not yet. My hands were shaking. Then I heard a door. Front door. Quiet. Like someone trying not to be heard. I closed the compartment. Moved fast. Slipped out the back stairwell before he saw me. I drove back shaking. It wasn't just the letters. It was the handwriting. It looked familiar. Too familiar. Later that night, I finally opened the top envelope. There were only 4 words inside. Words that made my throat close. You weren't supposed to survive. I didn't sleep that night. I kept rereading the letter, those 4 words, like they might change if I blinked enough. But they didn't. You weren't supposed to survive. It wasn't a metaphor. It wasn't poetry. It was a warning. The next morning, I drove to the only person left who might give me answers, my Aunt Clara. She was the family archivist, the one who hoarded old photos, kept birthday cards from decades ago, and labeled VHS tapes like she worked at a private museum. Everyone else found her eccentric. I found her essential. She lived alone in a rambling house on the edge of town, filled with creaking floorboards and yellowed lace curtains. The kind of place where secrets get dusty but never disappear. She opened the door in slippers and said, "I was wondering when you'd show up." I froze. Did my mom call you? No. But I saw the photos. What photos? Clara stepped aside, gesturing me in. Your wedding. I zoomed in on your husband's hands. His knuckles. Did you notice the scar? I blinked. Scar. Clara handed me her iPad. A screen grab from a Facebook post. Someone had uploaded an album. Page 3. A shot of Daniel adjusting his cufflink. There it was. A long, pale scar along his ring finger, like a line drawn on purpose. That's not a work injury, she said quietly. That's surgical. I didn't understand. Why would that matter? Clara didn't answer. She walked to her filing cabinet, literal drawers of labeled envelopes and manila folders. She opened one marked Family 1993 to 2000 and pulled out a newspaper clipping, folded 3 times. Read the name. I unfolded it. A headline from 1998. Tragedy strikes. Local girl survives fire, brother missing. I stared at the photo. 2 kids. A girl with singed hair and soot on her cheeks. A boy, slightly older, smiling beside her. The girl was me. I didn't remember the photo. I didn't remember a fire. I didn't remember a brother. That's not possible, I whispered. Clara looked at me softly. They told you it was a gas leak. That you were alone in the house. That you got out just in time. My mouth was dry. Why would they lie? She didn't answer right away. Then finally, because someone made sure you forgot. I stood up too fast. The room tilted. No, that can't be. I would remember. I would remember a brother. Clara nodded slowly. Unless someone didn't want you to. The envelopes. The handwriting. The scar. Is Daniel? I don't know, she said carefully. But if he's connected, you need to ask one more question. What? She picked up a framed photo from her mantel. My mom, maybe 25 years ago, holding a baby in her lap. That child is not you, she said. I leaned in. Blonde curls. Dimples. A tiny scar above the left eyebrow. That's my sister, I said. No, Clara said. Your sister was born 2 years later. I stared at the photo. Then I noticed it, the same scar on the baby's brow that I had. Identical. In the same spot. My stomach dropped. So who am I? I couldn't drive home after that. I pulled over at the edge of a gas station, my hands shaking against the steering wheel. The photo. The handwriting. The letter. You weren't supposed to survive. What did that mean? That I survived something someone didn't want me to? That my entire identity, my family, my memories had been shaped around a lie? The GPS was still set to Daniel's apartment. I stared at it, then switched it off. Instead, I drove to my parents' house. No plan. Just questions. The kind you don't write down because the answers might break you. My father opened the door. He looked surprised. Not angry. Not relieved. Just blank. Did something happen? He asked. I pushed past him. Inside, the house smelled like lemon polish and slow denial. Every photo on the wall was curated, staged. But one in particular caught my eye. A family photo from a birthday party, maybe mine, maybe not. My mother holding a child. My father next to her, smiling. But off to the side, almost cropped out, was someone else. A man. Late 20s. Awkward posture. Holding a child in his lap, one hand wrapped in bandages. I turned to my dad. Who is that? He didn't answer. Who is that? I said again, pointing. My mother appeared in the doorway, her voice low and sharp. You need to leave that alone. I looked at her. You lied to me. She sighed, but not like someone apologizing. More like someone preparing to carry a burden again. You were too young. You were in shock. And after what happened? What happened? I snapped. Silence. Then my father spoke, his voice hoarse. We buried your brother when you were 6. We told you he died in a fire because the truth would have destroyed you. What truth? They exchanged a look. Then my mother finally said it. He didn't die. The world stopped moving. I couldn't breathe. She went on. He disappeared. They found his shoe. Some ash. But not his body. I felt dizzy. You made me think he never existed. You stopped asking. And we wanted to believe it was over. Why? My father looked away. Because we think he came back. I blinked. What? We think he's been here. Watching. For years. I whispered, you think it's Daniel. They didn't answer. Instead, my mother opened a drawer in the hallway credenza. Pulled out a small black and white photo. A boy, maybe 11. Standing in front of a school. Tired eyes. Familiar ones. It was Daniel. But younger. Decades younger. How old is this? I asked. Taken 6 months after the fire, my father said. That's not possible. We never showed it to you. Why? Because whoever took it, mailed it to us. No return address. I stared at the image. It was Daniel. Same scar on the ring finger. Same crooked smile. And now he was my husband. I didn't speak for a long time. Not to my parents, not to myself. The photo was still in my hand when I left their house, but my thoughts were back in Daniel's apartment, in that hidden panel behind the closet, the letters addressed to her. If Daniel was my brother, why did he marry me? Why pretend not to know me? Why send a letter that said you weren't supposed to survive? Unless someone else wrote it. Someone who knew the truth. I needed more than fragments. I needed something concrete. So I went back to the only place where secrets are stored without judgment, my childhood home. The one my parents moved out of when I was 14. It had been empty for years, used only for storage. My father still kept the key on a chain in his office. I'd taken it without asking, too numb to care about permission anymore. The air inside the old house was thick and unmoved, like time had stopped the day we left. Dust floated like ghosts in the narrow hallway. But it was the basement I wanted. The stairs creaked under my weight, the light flickering like it had never been changed. I expected dust, old furniture, maybe some boxes. What I didn't expect was the trunk. It sat in the corner under a tarp, locked with a rusted latch. I pried it open with a screwdriver from the toolbox on the shelf. Inside were books. Toys. A small sweater with a name tag sewn into the collar, Eli. The name rang in my skull like a forgotten bell. My breath caught. Underneath the sweater was a photo album. Not one I recognized. I opened it slowly. Page after page of me and Eli. Playing in the yard. Hugging. Building sandcastles. I was smiling in every photo. But in none of them was Daniel. Because Daniel wasn't Daniel back then. He was Eli. My brother. Alive. Hidden. Then lost. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Just a text. You shouldn't be there. He's coming. I dropped the album. Spun around. The basement was still empty. But my pulse wasn't. It raced, fast and panicked. I grabbed the photo album and ran. Locked the door behind me. Threw the key into the weeds. And still, for the rest of the night, I kept looking over my shoulder. Because someone had been watching. Not just now. For years. And maybe, just maybe, Daniel hadn't written those letters after all. But if he hadn't, then who had? The photo album stayed on the kitchen table like a wound I couldn't close. I hadn't slept. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Daniel's face. Eli's face, smiling in those old photos. A smile I used to trust before I knew what it meant. The texts haunted me more than the photos. He's coming. Not he knows, not he's looking for you. He's coming. So who had sent them? And who were they warning me from? I went back to the envelope. The hidden letters. I had only read the first one, the one that said I wasn't supposed to survive. There were 4 more. I opened the second one with trembling fingers. This one was longer. Sharper. You don't remember the basement, do you? You were drugged. That was the only way they could make you forget. You kept talking about the crying behind the wall. They said it was nightmares. But you weren't dreaming. You saw him. You saw what they did. I dropped the letter. Drugged? The crying behind the wall? No. I would have remembered that. Wouldn't I? Unless the memory wasn't gone. Just buried. I stared at the basement key still on the counter. My parents had moved after the fire, not long after. Maybe I hadn't gone back to that part of the house since. I sat down. Closed my eyes. Waited. And something stirred. Not a memory exactly. A sound. Dripping water. A door creaking. My own voice whispering, "Don't tell." I opened my eyes gasping. The past wasn't coming back in pieces, it was crawling in like smoke under the door. I went to the last letter. Opened it. It was a photograph. Grainy, black and white. Taken through what looked like a keyhole. Daniel Eli was sitting in a chair, looking straight ahead. In the background was my childhood bedroom. My wallpaper. My curtains. The timestamp on the photo? 3 weeks before our wedding. And written across the back. You were supposed to protect him. But you chose to forget. I felt the scream rising in my throat, but it never came out. Because at that moment, the doorbell rang. Just once. Soft. Measured. I looked through the peephole. Daniel. Smiling. Holding the missing letters. I didn't open the door. Not right away. I just stood there, staring through the peephole, heart hammering against my ribs like it wanted out. Daniel stood perfectly still. The way someone does when they've rehearsed every second of what comes next. In his hand, the missing letters. The same envelopes, the same elegant handwriting. He knew I'd seen them. He knew I'd read at least one. He knew everything now. Or maybe he always had. Open the door, he said softly, like he could see me through the wood. Please. We have to talk. I didn't move. Did you write them? I asked through the door. No, he said. But I know who did. I opened it. Just the chain at first. He looked tired. Like he hadn't slept either. Like the weight he carried had finally tipped too far forward. I'm not here to hurt you, he said. Then what are you here for? Daniel looked down at the letters. I came to tell you the truth. All of it. I hesitated, then unlatched the chain. He stepped inside, slowly. Cautiously. I didn't ask him to sit. I didn't offer water. I just stared. He held out the stack of envelopes. You missed one. I didn't take them. Start talking. He nodded once. Then sat. And everything I thought I knew about him, about me, about us, started to collapse. I don't remember everything, he said. But I remember you. He glanced at the photo album on the counter. You were the only one who didn't lie. You used to sneak me candy. Tell me bedtime stories when Mom and Dad were too tired. You covered for me when I broke the window in the garage. His voice caught. But then, something changed. I didn't interrupt. I don't remember the fire, he said. But I remember the weeks before. The fights. The closed doors. The whispers. He looked at me. They were going to send me away. Somewhere special. Somewhere with locked doors. My chest tightened. They said I was unstable. Dangerous. But I wasn't. I was just angry. Angry at them for what they did to you. My breath hitched. What did they do to me? He hesitated. Then said it. They made you forget. I keep hearing that, but no one tells me how. He nodded at the letters. The one you haven't read yet, the last one, it explains everything. What really happened. Why you don't remember. I picked up the last envelope. My hands were shaking. You're not here to stop me? I asked. He shook his head. I'm here to be with you when it finally breaks. What breaks? His voice was almost a whisper. Your whole world. I opened the letter. Inside was a single sentence. You were the one who lit the fire. I dropped the letter. It landed face up, like a final judgment. You were the one who lit the fire. No, I said. Daniel didn't flinch. I didn't believe it either. Not at first. I was 6, I whispered. 6-year-olds don't burn houses down. Not on purpose, he said gently. But you weren't alone. You were scared. And you were trying to protect me. I stared at him, willing this to be some cruel misdirection. A mistake. A lie. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an old, warped cassette tape. Yellowed label. Handwritten initials. E.M. June 1998. Where did you get that? It was mailed to me. Last year. No return address. Just like the letters. He handed it to me. There's a player in the car. If you want to hear what happened. I hesitated. Then followed him. The car was parked just across the street. He pressed play. Static. Then a voice. A woman's voice. Shaky. Familiar. If anyone finds this, she doesn't remember. We made sure of that. But it wasn't her fault. We pushed too far. Eli was getting worse, and we blamed her. We said she was making it up, the crying, the bruises, the notes. But she saw everything. More static. Then, the night of the fire. She locked the door from the outside. Said she was keeping the monsters in. We didn't know she thought Eli was the monster. I couldn't breathe. The voice continued. We had her sedated after that. Told her she ran from the house. That she was a hero. But the truth is, she lit the match. I ripped out the cassette. Silence slammed into the car like a wave. I didn't mean to, I whispered. I was a child. I was scared. Daniel looked at me, his voice tender. You thought I was hurting them. I thought I was protecting you. You were. I turned to him. Then why now? Why come back? Why marry me? Daniel looked down, swallowed hard. Because I needed to see who you became. My voice cracked. And what did you find? He looked at me, eyes wet. Someone worth saving. We sat in silence. 2 people, stitched together by a past neither of us asked for. Then he handed me a small notebook, old, torn, written in a child's handwriting. My handwriting. Drawings. Notes. Scrawled words like, don't trust the red room. Eli hides the scissors. Monsters live behind mirrors. He whispered, you remembered more than they ever knew. You just put it in ink and forgot the meaning. I pressed my forehead to the window. So now what? He exhaled. Now you decide. Decide what? He turned to me, serious now. Whether we let this define us, or end it here. My fingers curled around the notebook. Behind us, the house loomed full of ghosts, of burned lies, of a childhood none of us got to finish. I don't know who I am without this story, I admitted. Daniel nodded. Then maybe it's time to write a new one. We drove away in silence. No final showdown. No explosive ending. Just the quiet understanding that sometimes surviving is the twist. And remembering, that's the real revenge.